just as I was getting to the entrance of the pub, I heard a long burst of automatic fire. It was very unusual to hear AK-47 going off in a hardline Protestant area. Door burst open, some young lad came in, and he says the RAF just killed Stephen Waller. It was at that moment in time I started sort of training and working towards getting into the SAS.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Old Paratrooper podcast. But before we get started, I want to tell you about our new sponsors, Veterans for Veterans. If you served after 1987 and your hearing's taken a knock from your time in the forces, these are the people to speak to. They've helped thousands of veterans like us claim compensation for tinnitus and hearing loss. They're ex-military themselves, so they genuinely get it.
It's free to check if you qualify, and the claims are no win, no fee. To get started, click the link in this video or visit veteransforveterans.co.uk.
Right, welcome to another episode of the Old Paratrooper podcast. Some of you might notice that it's a slightly different setting. We're coming from an undisclosed location in South Wales, where I'm joined today with former Royal Irish Ranger, former SAS, former 14 INT and SRR, Rob Davison. How you doing, Rob?
Yeah, good, Chris.
Thanks for joining me.
No problem.
I say joining me joining you on this occasion. But no, look, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I love having former Special Forces guys on. I think that their stories are incredible. And yeah, I just like to kind of get to the bottom of what makes you tick. So as with all podcasts, what I like to do is I like to get a bit of a feel about the guest, where they grew up, and ultimately what led them down the path that they took in life. So yeah, over to you. Whereabouts you from?
Well, originally from North Belfast, Ballyshilling area, which is a renowned area of Northern Ireland, and Belfast, obviously. It's sort of gained notoriety back in the sort of late 1970s, because it was where the Shankill butchers used to dump their victims after killing them.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was an interesting area to grow up in, but it was also it was the best playground in the world for a young lad growing up in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, happy days, happy days. So obviously the Troubles, Northern Ireland, and I think it's no secret the fact it was kind of a harsh kind of place, especially for a kid. So when did you become aware? You know, we've had a bit of a chat. You became aware of the paras knocking around and stuff like that. So yeah, to tell me about that experience. Was that kind of your first memories of troops on the ground in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, my first memories was actually of the parachute rising. We were down visiting my grandparents in the Shankill Road, where my mother's originally from. Where my grandparents lived. We were down there. I remember I was so small, I was actually stood on the passenger seat with my hands up on the dashboard, looking out the window. And an old stripped down Land Rover drove past with guys in the back wearing, as I thought they were, red berets at the time. And my dad goes to see them, and he says, they're called the Red Devils. They're the elite. So that was sort of like my first real fond memory of the army. But obviously, growing up, they were everywhere. A real vivid memory was when the IRA put a bomb outside my school.
Wow.
Which was literally 30 metres from my house. I remember being woke up in the middle of the night. Soldiers stood in the doorway. It's like something you see in a film. This big silhouette of a soldier wearing like a flak jacket. Very vivid memory. Remember him picking me up out of bed. I remember being put in the back of an armoured vehicle with the rest of my family, my brothers and my sisters. And then we were drove down to a community centre about a mile away. We were in there. Everyone from my area was in there. It seemed really strange because it's wee hours of the morning. And then all of a sudden there was a loud bang, which was the army carrying out a controlled explosion. When we got back to the house, which was actually a masonette, which aren't there no more. When we get back, all the windows were blown in. The entire area, all the windows were blown in. So I remember sort of like for weeks having plyboard curtains Okay, and
No way.
it seemed really dead strange at the time that outdoors it was the summer, bright sunlight, and when you came into the house, you had the lights on. Okay, but it's something which stuck with me. My mother's still got a bit of the shrapnel from the car bomb,
Wow.
which basically came through one of the windows, penetrated the cot where my sister would have been sleeping, and basically it ripped the cot to bits. So, and it was lodged in the wall, and she's actually still got it to this day.
Wowzers.
Yeah.
I mean, that sort of growing up around that environment, I mean, it's like, it sounds horrendous, but it's obviously kind of part of your, part of the reason that it's probably shaped you as the person you are today, So kind of moving forward, there is an incident that I want to talk about. I know it might be a little bit kind of difficult for you, but it was like, as you described it to me, perhaps instrumental in why you went in. Your story's a little bit different to a lot of people that join the military. So please tell me about that experience.
Well, my brother, he had been in the RUC, so I was used to sort of like them talking about the police and the army. He'd been stationed in a place called Carrickmore, which had been mortared and stuff like that by the IRA. But the unique bit about it, of the story was it was the first time I'd ever heard of Special Forces. It's the first time I'd ever heard the SAS being mentioned. Because apparently the SAS would come in and out of this sort of like patrol base, this makeshift, obviously, camp made out of corrugated iron in this, as they would call, bandit country. But the SAS would come in on a regular basis. It was also the first time I'd ever heard mention of 14 INT, or 14 Intelligence Company, all through my brother and his friends talking when they were off duty. So it's sort of like intriguing me, because I never thought that Britain had special forces. I always thought it was only countries like America.
Well, for years, the British Special Forces were literally behind the kind of scenes. No one knew about them, did they?
Well, that's it. So for me, my first memory of ever hearing about Special Forces was the Green Berets, the John Wayne film.
Yeah.
So I always thought that, all right, if I want to be in Special Forces, I've got to go to America. But it was my brother telling me, actually, the British Special Forces are the best Special Forces in the world. We are sort of like the founders of what Special Forces are.
Yeah, absolutely.
From there, then, obviously, started getting books, started looking at books, reading as much as I could about the SAS. And it was really from about the age of 11, which sounds bizarre, okay, but that's when I decided that I was going to join the army with the specific reason to go into the SAS.
That is an early age to couldn't even know about them. I was unaware of them at that age. So that's what I mean. It's a kind of a different from that age and your mindset. I talk about mindset a lot and the importance of it and the drive. But your drive as an 11-year-old to have that set in your mind that's what you're going to do. I find that amazing.
Yeah.
So.
But it was because of the environment that was brought up in.
Yeah.
Obviously, the army were on the streets every day. I could tell you what a helicopter was by just its sound. Okay, I could tell the difference between a Lynx, a Gazelle, and a Wessex easily by just the acoustic sound.
Yeah.
It made, I didn't even need to see it. Chinook as well. The first time I saw a Chinook, I couldn't believe it. I just heard this big, massive whop, whop, whop as it came across the sky. You actually felt it in your chest. And years later, when I was in the SAS, it was a sound I became very familiar with. It was either bringing me in on ups or picking me up, and it's a sound which even to this day makes the hairs in the back of my neck stand up whenever I hear them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got a distinctive sound, to be fair.
It.
So what age did you actually go into the Royal Irish Rangers?
Okay, so I actually joined up when I was 19.
Right.
The reason being is because I had a bit of sort of back trouble and all that sort of stuff, so I wanted to get all that squared away before I joined up. But I joined the Royal Irish Rangers, did my training in Ballymena in Northern Ireland. Best time I've ever had within the military.
Really?
Yeah, the training which I got there, it was the foundation to everything which would later go on to help me get into Special Forces.
Yeah.
The friends I met there, I've still got friends there from this day, 35 years later. They are amongst some of my best friends. What was unique about the Irish Rangers was that it brought communities together. So, as an example, obviously, I'm from Ballysillan, North Belfast. Would be regarded as a hardline Protestant area. My father's from the Shore Road.
Right.
My mother's from the Shankill Road.
Okay.
But we were brought up, in my household, it was non-sectarian.
Right.
We didn't care what side of the peace line you came from. We didn't care. So whenever I went into the Royal Irish Rangers, I was in there with people from Southern Ireland, okay, and people from Belfast as well. Two of them, sort of my closest friends to this day, one of them is from Polglass, okay, which is hardline Republican area, and the other one is from the Falls Road, okay.
That's
so
crazy, isn't
they
it?
were in the Irish Rangers with me. So because of my unique sort of upbringing with my parents, I accepted that, no problems whatsoever. And the Irish Rangers, sort of like, that was the foundation, really, which sort of created these friendships, which have lasted, 35 years.
It does that to you, minutes,
Yeah.
doesn't it? And isn't it weird how you can go years and years and years, I say it all the time, and then speak to someone you've not seen in 20, it's like you've seen them yesterday. You know?
Exactly.
I love that about the kind of the brotherhood and the camaraderie and the bond that it you know, and moving forward, you know, for you, probably big part of that bond. So there is a specific incident I want to talk about. Again, I think it'll probably be a little bit difficult, and it's quite a personal one where you encounter the death of a friend. So yeah.
Sure. So what it was, we were home on Christmas leave from Royal Irish Regiment, 1992 it was. And I was just in the house, and all of a sudden I decided I was going to call down and see a friend who was home on leave with me. We'd been to the Boys Model School together, which was the school we went to when we were younger. His wife actually knew my sister.
Right.
Okay, so it was quite close. This is what it was like growing up in my area. Okay, everyone knew everyone.
Well, a close community, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. But I decided I was going to call down and see him. His name is Stephen Waller. So decided to walk down and see him. Just as I was getting to the entrance of the pub, I heard a long burst of automatic fire. I knew straight away it was AK-47. Again, growing up in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay. You got the no different patterns of different sounds from weapon systems. If we would hear a bomb going off, we would just look at each other and we just go, that was close. Okay. The difference about this was that it was very unusual to hear AK-47 going off in a hardline Protestant area.
Right.
Okay, because the pub I was going into, it was in a hardline Protestant area. So straight away, I thought that was IRA. Straight away, okay. So when I got into the pub, I was sitting there. I met up with some people who knew my family, sitting having a drink with them. Door burst open, some young lad came in, and he says, the IRA have just killed Stephen Waller.
Fuck.
It was at that, it's just, I remember just breaking down in tears.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
Because he was a friend.
Yeah.
The people who I was sitting drinking with had to go and phone my father, who drove down, he picked me up, he brought me home. And I remember waking up the next day thinking, I need to do something about this. How can I help the situation in Northern Ireland? Obviously, looking back on past memories, my brother, him and his friends, RUC friends, they were adamant that the solution was special forces, special operations. So that's when I decided, right, even though I joined the army to join the SAS, that accelerated my sort of plans.
It's almost a turning point.
It was definitely a turning point for me. It was that moment in time I started sort of training and working towards getting into the SAS.
What age was you roughly around then?
I was 22. I'd only been in the army a couple of years. I was home on leave because I was going to do junior bracking.
Right. Okay. Which is, again, after 2 years is quite fast. So obviously you shone and had kind of took to it quite well.
Well, in training I got champion recruit and champion shot, which I think I was the first person ever to get it. I can't be sure. I don't want to sort of blow smoke up my own obvious.
Yeah.
But from what I was told at the time, I was the first person to get it. I was on an NCO quarter in my unit in the Royal Irish Rangers, as it was then. Within a year, I came second on that there. So, and there have been guys who have been in the army 6-7 years.
Yeah, that was the usual, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, but I put all that down to growing up like in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, I suppose it's prepared you or made you, even the little things like being situational aware, where, you know, and kind of being aware of your surroundings, that sort of thing, which are fundamental when you're going through military training, aren't they? So if you've got that ingrained into you from a young age, that's going to only carry you in good stead moving into the military. And obviously you had a proper knack for it, like I've said.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when I went into 14 Intelligence Company, the experiences I had as a kid, the situational awareness, reading atmospherics, it just became second nature to me.
I bet.
When I was out on the streets walking through hardline areas of cities.
And knowing the areas as well, you know, having grown up around them. Because you remember that when you were a kid, don't you, of growing up and streets and areas. So obviously moving that later on, like after, you know, you join the SAS, it can only be an advantage, surely.
Yeah. I mean, but whenever I went in the 14 Intelligence Company, because I grew up in Belfast, they also wanted to get me as far away from Belfast as possible.
That makes sense.
And it does make sense, because a lot of people think that 14 Intelligence Company just worked against the Republicans, but we didn't. We worked against loyalist paramilitary groups as well. But I don't want to go down that sort of political path.
No.
Out there. But I mean, we didn't care what side of the fence you were on.
Yeah.
A terrorist was a terrorist, and we had a job to do, and we were relentless in our pursuit of carrying out like our mission. It's like I say, growing up in Northern Ireland, it totally prepared me for it.
No, absolutely. I can imagine that. I have operated in Northern Ireland myself, as in the Green Army, obviously. I always find it weird with the Northern Ireland thing because of, it's just, I've said this before, without fear of repeating myself, it's just, you're operating in a normal town. It's not like a faraway place, is it, like Iraq or Afghanistan, which are blatantly, you know, synonymous with recent events and stuff like that. But when you're cutting around an everyday town that you'd find anywhere on the mainland, but you're armed and I find it bizarre now to look back on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange environment because you're over there as an undercover soldier. You're not there like the rest of the Green Army, as we call it. You're there. You're operating in civilian clothing, and obviously you're walking about weaponed up, tooled up, as we call it. There, and you know, you've always got this sense that someone's watching you, and it's actually not a bad thing, you know, because they always said, when you do the covert stuff, you know, I mean, it's always third party what's going to kill you. Okay? Yeah. Because obviously you're so focused on what you're doing, you aren't aware of who's watching you.
Yeah. So again, we come back to that situational awareness, which obviously your upbringing made you a better soldier in a kind of weird kind of way. Yeah. So obviously, Royal Irish Rangers, you've made that decision now. You made that leap. You've done a few career courses. You've got a bit of experience behind you. Right. Bang. Gonna have a crack at selection. Yeah. Okay, how was that for you? Because I get mixed reports. I talk about this all the time. Sure. You know, selection for some people, and I find it fascinating. One, the reasons for people going down that route, and two, very rarely do two people have the same, obviously, experiences with it. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. Yeah. Some people have a difficult. So, what about you? How did you find selection?
I loved it.
Yeah, you're one of them weird folk that enjoyed it, aren't you? Sadistic, I can see it, Rob.
I loved every single minute of it.
All right, fair enough.
It's just, for me, because I knew about the SAS, because I'd researched it, because I'd researched sort of the selection process, I knew exactly what I was letting myself in for. I personally didn't find any of the physical parts of it that hard, because I'd basically trained for 2 years. Okay.
Well, you sort of prepared. Yeah. Did you find that career courses helped you? Yeah. With the fitness? Because you hear a lot of stories of people coming off your juniors or your seniors and then going straight on selection, because you're almost your fitness levels, your weapon handling, your tactics. It's all. Was that the case with you? Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I sort of joined the SAS, they preferred you to have been in a minimum of 6 years. Yeah. So I had to wait to the 6 year point because I was going off this criteria. So I waited to the 6-year point. They preferred you to have done junior bracken at least.
Yeah, I remember that being a bit of
Yeah.
the case, and
So
they were reluctant to let you go.
This
before.
is why. I mean, if I could have went sooner, I'd have went sooner. But I had to wait until I thought I met the criteria. They also wanted you to be in your mid-20s.
Yeah.
So when I went, it was 25. Okay, so
Still early though, wasn't it?
yeah. So I waited, and then once I did go, it was basically I was so well prepared for it. I personally didn't find it that hard. It was difficult, don't get me wrong. Mentally, I was prepared for it, and physically, I was prepared for it. But there is the odd occasion, when you think, what am I doing?
That doubt creeps in.
But
It's human nature though, isn't it?
Yeah, but never once did I feel like throwing the towel in. Never.
Really?
I just knew that that's where I was meant to be. And
Yeah.
I just kept going and going and going until I finally got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is. Yeah, like I say, to be driven, and I talk about it. I've talked about it recently, about some of the fittest soldiers that I've ever encountered have gone on selection, and you've almost gone, I'll put 100 grand on him passing, and then they come back, injury.
Sure.
Yeah. So mindset, a bit of luck. Would you say that's a fair comment?
100%. Preparation's everything. A lot of guys come off the hills because of their feet. Their blisters, toes falling off. Almost.
Yeah.
Definitely toenails. Maybe not so much.
Well,
toes.
well, stranger things.
But I remember, before I would go out, I would always sink oxide up my whole feet. I would wear double socks. I had boots which were well broken in. It was all part of the prep. It's all part of selection. I made sure that my bergen was well broke in, that sort of stuff. Even my combats, I made sure that my combat trousers. I always wore jungles because they were lightweight. They dried out quick, that sort of stuff, and the fabric was softer.
Yeah.
So as it didn't rub you so much, I wore lighter bottoms. You'd see guys walking about, as if they just got off a horse because of rub.
Yeah.
And I'd be thinking, what training did you do before you turned up here? Because you obviously haven't done hard enough training, or else all these problems would have came out.
It's not a course that you can wing, is it? Let's be honest.
No.
If you're turning up there and winging it, I bet you though there is the odd anomaly that has winged it and got through. I could tell you about one who's a very, very good friend of me, but I'll talk to you about that off air. But usually, you can't. You've got to turn up. You've got to be prepared.
Sure.
You've got to have worked on your fitness. You've got to be switched on. We talked about that. It's the best special force in the world, bar none. We are the forefathers of special forces, so you've got to be prepared.
Yeah.
So you've gone through selection, hills phase, jungle phase. For you, as I always ask, which part did you find that put you the most out? I'm not going to say difficult because you said you didn't find it hard as such, but that put you most out your comfort zone.
I would say resistance to interrogation, because that was something which you can't prepare for. It's something which you read about, it's something which you hear about, but until you're actually put in a position where you're kept away for 36 hours, and you're constantly interrogated, you're put in humiliation, sort of like situations. Like one time I was brought in, was made to strip naked in front of a woman, made to turn around, bend over, spread my ass cheeks.
It sounds funny when you're talking about it, but when you're under that sort of duress and
Yeah.
sleep deprivation, probably not so funny.
Yeah, but the thing is there, Chris, I mean, I'm going to sound like some sort of weirdo, but I actually enjoyed it.
Yes, you're right. You do sound like
Not so much of
no.
the spreading of the ass cheeks, but it was more so, to me, it was a new skill. So I was learning something from it. I was also testing myself, because I'd never been in that position before. So to me, this was a challenge. So that's how I looked at it. Being strapped to a pallet in November, being left out in the cold, being hosed down with cold water. That throws you into instant cramp.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and then obviously being left there for 5 minutes in cramp, and then being cut off, and then being sort of made to stand up, there sort of stuff. It's sort of it does, like it's a challenge.
I can imagine, yeah.
But in all honesty, I must be a weirdo. I must be sick. Okay, but I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed every single bit of it.
Well, that just says to me that you're massively suited for special forces. Then if you find that, and the way you said it, then you see you took learning points away, which I think is a very. If you're going to be UK special forces again, best in the world, and you're taking learning points from the course, I've not heard anyone describe it like that. So obviously you again suited for it. It was your destiny, without sounding corny, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So you got off selection. I hear that the selection, sort of the ceremony at the end, pretty much like, here's your berry, go and fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Is that pretty much the case?
That was literally it. We were given our berries 2 days before, told to shape them, pin our names inside them. Training officer, we were all called into sort of the lecture hall. Training officer came in and he basically, big pile of berries. He looked in, saw whose name it was. You had to raise your hand. He threw it at you.
Wow.
Okay, yeah. And then I remember him saying, right, put it on. So we all put it on. And then he says, now take it off and stick it in your pocket. He says, you'll never wear it again. Okay. Whenever I was there, sort of like it was the normal for regiment guys, blades, as sort of like we're known as. Okay. We never used to wear berries. They were always in our pockets. So they were. So when we go away on training courses, like as well, obviously that's our mentality. We don't wear our berries when we're walking around camps. We don't mind walking on the grass. You know how
I
much
bet that gets you some shit off some various regimental sergeant majors and stuff.
Yeah, well, we were down doing high altitude training, in some RAF camp. I can't remember where, but anyway, it came to lunchtime. So we had 2 options. We could take the long way around to the cookhouse, or we could take the short way, which was across the grass.
No brainer, innit?
Yeah. So we started heading across the grass. Next thing we hear is, "Oh, you lot stand still." There. So we turn around, we look at him, and we just go, "Yeah." So we just carry on walking. It turned out to be sort of like the camp sergeant major. So he decided that he was going to take the long way around. Okay, whilst we were taking the short way around, he was almost running with his pace. That it was comical. So he was marching but almost running, okay, to catch up with us, because he didn't obviously want to run, because he didn't want to look uncool.
Yeah.
And it's just as he started to approach us, one of the guys took his beret and put it on his head. And that realisation that you're about to make a fool of yourself, you could see it on his face.
Did he just like turn around and
he just sort of says, "Fellas, I know you're only visiting, but you mind not walking on the grass."
changed his tune a bit,
Yeah,
didn't it?
and we went, "No problem."
And that's the kind of respect that you get being SF. It's such a high on. I liken it to, so it's the highest military accolade you could potentially. It is, isn't it? It's the pinnacle of soldiering.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. You've got your berry. You've gone to stand up. You've gone to 2-2. How was it fitting in? Because I do hear the stories that there's cliques. I don't know how true that is. There's cliques. Some of the para reg lads, they go to a particular squadron.
Sure.
Did you kind of find that?
I went to A Squadron.
Yeah.
A Squadron was a mix of everyone. I never really found it that way. I'm a naturally grey person. Okay, I like to sort of be the grey man.
Yeah.
By nature, which is probably why I fitted into 14 Company in that role.
Yeah.
So well. But I found that from growing up in Northern Ireland, I was always taught not to stand out, because if you stand out, you're going to be picked out.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sort of fitted me, but I loved A Squadron. I think when I was there, obviously when I was there, A Squadron I think was the best squadron. So with it,
That's going to get some criticism.
Yeah, of course. I can just see all the B's and D's squadron guys.
Well, hold on a minute.
Yeah. But to me it was. I mean, each guy's going to think their squadron's the best.
That's natural. It's that natural competition again, isn't it?
Exactly. But it was. But I went to mobility trip. So we were all like vehicle based and that sort of stuff. I've been doing motocross since I was a kid. So I fiddled in there well. So that's why I'm saying, for me, I didn't really, yes, of course there's clicks. There's always little clicks. There's clicks everywhere you go, that sort of stuff. But within mobility trip, we were quite tight-knit.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because everyone thinks they can do mobility. Okay, so we don't get the same sort of respect as what everyone else gets.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's sort of like anyone can drive a vehicle, anyone can drive a motorbike. And then the next thing, we're in Afghanistan, I'm on a motorbike and I ask someone to take a motorbike off me so they have a break for a couple of hours. It was easier to find a unicorn.
No one wanted to go there.
Oh, no one wanted to go near it. Okay, so all of a sudden, it was like, it ain't that easy. That sort of stuff. But during the invasion, I was on a motorbike the whole time. Loved it. I was Ks and Ks out in front of everyone. In fact, the insurgent route that we took, I actually planned, but obviously Rupert got the credit for it.
Yeah, right, okay.
In fact, the routes that we planned, we were asked to plan 3 routes. The guy, as I was walking past the ops tent, my troop staff, he came out, a guy called Al, ex-para.
Right.
Okay, so he pops his head out and he goes, "Where you go?" I said, "I'm just going for a brew." And he says, "I need you to do me a favour." So I popped into the this tent, and he had maps all over the place. And he goes, "The CEO has asked me to plan 3 routes." He says, "So the routes we're going to plan is red, blue, green."
Obviously.
Power rage, obviously flashes. He says, "I'm going to plan red," because he was 1 para. He said to the other guy, "Mick, you're going to plan blue." And he said to me, "And you can go on green." And I says, "All right." So I planned the green route, okay, from the insertion point down to the target. CEO picked my route, okay. Believe it or not, mate, I actually led 2 squadrons, A and G squadron, okay, using an E-Trax.
I remember the E-Trax. I remember the Garmin E-Trax, yeah.
So I put all the waypoints in on the E-Trax, okay, and that's what could pass around two squadrons.
Wow.
Okay, so they took all my waypoints off. I then strapped it. I've actually got a photograph, and you can actually see it on the handlebars of my XR 400. And basically, I led two squadrons. We were supposed to stay within the umbrella of the weapon systems, but I loved it. I was gone. So,
doing your own thing.
Yeah, I was just doing my own thing, so I was Ks out in front of them. They would basically follow the waypoints, but follow my motorbike tracks as well.
Yeah.
Okay, because we were cutting through fresh desert as well, so it was easy to follow the tracks. And then as soon as we came to a change of direction, or as soon as I started to feel a bit uneasy, I would stop, let the other 2 squadrons catch up. They'd all go happy, and I'd say yep, and then I'd crack on again. And I did that for the full insertion.
Was this immediately after 9/11, pretty much? So like the early Tora Bora bit, kind of.
So yeah, I mean, when we inserted, it was about 5 weeks, 6 weeks after 9/11.
Post 9/11, okay.
Yeah, Delta. It was actually Delta sponsored our HLS. So they went. Our tactical landing zone.
Yeah.
So they went in ahead of us. Okay. And then they were actually extracting because it was full moon.
Right.
Because they didn't like to work. They like to use their night vision and all their thermal imagery to their best advantage. Obviously, we're SAS. We don't care. Because we don't have the same budget as what they have. So our night vision, our thermal imagery wasn't as good as theirs. Okay, but we don't care. Okay, so we inserted. They marked our TLZ, and we actually got inserted by US Air Force Talons, which are C-130 Special Forces flights.
Right, yeah.
5 C-130s.
They have like Special Forces pilots and that as well, don't they? Yeah.
We have that as well, but for some reason the RAF couldn't insert us. So we had to turn to the Americans. Americans were more than happy to insert us because they were extracting Delta.
I did notice that from my time, and it seems they were the RAF, as great as they are, were a bit more risk averse on some occasions. And again, I might get some criticism for that comment, but it appeared that, I mean, my instances.
What it was, mate, is they just didn't have the capability within sort of like night vision, FLIR, or whatever. That is what we were told at the time.
Well, it could have been the case.
Yeah. I personally found the RAF pilots, especially the Chinook pilots, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think skills wise, but I think sometimes we're a bit, like I say, risk adverse with certain stuff, because of some of the red tape and bureaucracy that goes on.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah. So obviously, in a minute, I'm going to sort of delve into your sort of the sneaky beaky bit, if you like, of your career. But before we do that, we're just going to grab a quick break.
Yep.
I want to tell you about our new sponsors, Veterans for Veterans. If you served after 1987 and your hearing's taken a knock from your time in the forces, these are the people to speak to. They've helped thousands of veterans like us claim compensation for tinnitus and hearing loss. They're ex-military themselves, so they genuinely get it.
It's free to check if you qualify, and the claims are no win, no fee. To get started, click the link in this video or visit veteransforveterans.co.uk.
Right, welcome back. Where were we up to? We were just about talking about, obviously, got back from Afghanistan. You went on, which I've just learned in the break, you went on DS. Was that around that time before you decided to move on from 2-2 or?
DS within SF?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was basically, I went to the Special Reconnaissance Regiment later on in my career. I went there as one of the permanent staff, like instructors.
I get you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come on to that
Sure.
then, yeah. So, obviously, we talked about what we talked about early on about, obviously, your reasons for joining. Op Banner, obviously, went on for decades in Northern Ireland.
Yep.
We all were aware of the troubles and the harsh reality of what went off there. And obviously, you always said, look, I'm going in the SAS. That's what I'm going to do. You're in the SAS now. Some would say the pinnacle of SF. So, and then you decided to make a leap into kind of the surveillance side of stuff, didn't you, over in Northern Ireland and stuff. So tell me about how that come about and really what was your not deciding factor, because you know that's what you need to do, but how that came about as such.
Well, what happened there was I was actually on an advanced driving course down in South Wales. I got a phone call from the Sergeant Major basically saying they want me to go to 14 company.
Right.
So I thought myself, well, it's where I want to be. Okay, so I agreed to go and do it. Well, I mean, instantly. So by the time I finished the driving course and I got back, they says, oh, right, listen, you've only been in the regiment a couple of years. Okay, so what we're going to do, okay, we're going to put someone else on it, even though we've asked you to go. Because the guy who they originally asked turned it down. So then they says, well, who else would be good at it? Let's send old Rob, because he's from there. Okay, but then he changed his mind. Okay, so as a make-up to me, they basically put me on this thing, we called it the National Liaison Team out in Bosnia, but it was actually like a front for hunting down the war criminals.
Right.
So my introduction to surveillance was SAS guys who had been with 14 company. Okay, basically they basically were called in to train up the guys going out to Bosnia in surveillance techniques, which they had learned from 14 intelligence company in Northern Ireland. So the foundation to the training was everything from 14 company. And that's sort of where I got the taste for it. It was something completely different.
Right.
I'd never experienced it before in my life. I actually found it mega hard.
Okay.
Initially, I really struggled with it. Mainly because of the procedures which we've got to go through. Voice procedure, how we report stuff. Obviously, my accent doesn't help when I'm on the radio.
I don't know what you mean.
But that didn't help. Also, there's a lot of information you've got to retain as part of your navigation. Okay,
Right.
we've got a certain way that we
I've
navigate.
heard of that. It's like you're given almost stories to remember and recite
Yeah.
at checkpoints. Is that true?
So that's part of the actual selection.
Oh, right,
itself,
okay.
Yeah. But whenever we're doing the navigation part of it, when it comes to reporting on who you're following, there's a set way of doing it. And you've got to call out certain things as you're driving along without going into any operational
Right, okay.
sort of
It's a lot to think about.
procedures. So what I did to get my head around it, I would get up at 4 a.m. I would drive up to Hereford because I lived in Bracken the whole time I was in the SAS. I drove up to Hereford at 4 a.m. and I would drive around the streets whilst there was no cars on the road, learn all the routes, learn all the procedures, learn all the reporting spots as such. So as to make sure that I was going to pass like the course, because it was pass or fail.
Well, that's a bit like going over the routes on selection. It's about the planning
100%.
and the foresight.
Exactly,
I can't fault you.
So that's it. So that's why, I mean, obviously, prior plan and preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Indeed, it does.
So that's why, basically, to me, it was a no-brainer. It was something I really, really wanted to do. So I followed my old-fashioned training procedures and thought, right, okay, get up there and prepare for the course to make sure that you pass it. The training which the old 14 company guys give us was absolutely fantastic. It was so interesting. We had to learn photography. We had to learn stuff reporting from helicopters, which obviously is an art form in its own, especially when you're doing it at night and all you're following is tail lights.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously there's other sort of procedures which obviously I can't go into too much detail
I understand
on.
that, yeah.
But the guys who ended up training me ended up deploying with me as well.
Wow.
So we became really close knit team. And then whilst we were out there, obviously we developed tactics and procedures as we went along, because the biggest problem that we found was communications. Because with 14 Company in Northern Ireland, you've got a comms infrastructure. When you're doing expeditionary surveillance, which Special Accounts Regiment found out later on, because all of a sudden they didn't have the comms infrastructure, what they used to have in Northern Ireland, we were sort of like the lead within expeditionary surveillance.
Right.
Okay? So we learned how to overcome all these problems. The signals we had attached with us at the time was 264, were absolutely fantastic. So any problem we came across, they solved it.
They sometimes don't necessarily get the recognition deserved because they're like, oh, it's signals, it's not an interesting topic, but you can't. We always say that no comms, but no bombs without comms and stuff like that. Exactly. It's a true story, isn't it?
Well, the thing is, I mean, when your main role is surveillance and reconnaissance, which is one of the main roles of the SAS, if you can't get comms, then you can't report. It's absolutely vital. But the 264 guys we had with us in Bosnia were absolutely outstanding, and I don't think they get enough recognition for what they did, and sort of like basically what they do for special forces. Yeah. Really to this day. I mean, I know they've got their own cap badge now, and they're called Special Forces Communicators. So there's a little bit of recognition.
Yeah, that's a good thing. What just going off track a little bit, but what's their selection like? Do they do like pretty much SF selection? Watered down version, if that's the right way to say it.
I don't know that much about it, so I don't want to sort of say too much.
That's fair enough, yeah.
But I think it's sort of like a watered down version of our selection process.
I'd heard that anyway, yeah, but I was just,
Yeah.
No, but like, yeah. So you've got a taste for it in Bosnia. Mm-hmm. Okay. So was that, again, another pinnacle moment where you thought, I really like this. Yeah. I'm going to come back, I'm going to take the leap and move into... And some will say, look, you're already in the best, criticism coming, the best special forces on the planet. Yeah. And then you're kind of moving... It's a different field, isn't it? It's a different skill set. Did you find like the transition easy? Or I know you said you found it, but how did you find 14 in kind of selection?
Because I'd been through 14 company style training for Bosnia. Yeah. One thing I want to add on the Bosnia stuff is that, which actually helped me later on with 14 company. Your third party awareness in Bosnia had to be exceptional, because we actually had the Republic of Srpska police.
Right.
And sort of their paramilitary units, they were actually out hunting us when we were hunting the war criminals, because we were actually hunting their old friends. So it was obviously because of your situational awareness, which I learned from Bosnia, then basically that was the foundation to my situational awareness on top of what I learned as a kid in Northern Ireland when I went across the 14 company. But the actual 14 company selection itself, it was, again, they polished what I already knew.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit it. They were the absolute masters of surveillance. Criticism coming.
Always.
Yeah, but to me, 14 Intelligence Company was the best military covert intelligence unit ever to exist, in my personal opinion. The operators who I met there from the old 14 company days, when they were, they're in the sort of 1980s and stuff like that, they were absolute legends out there. The thing with 14 company, it taught me patience. It taught me how to work under pressure. With the sort of work what you do with 14 Intelligence Company, you can't let your emotions get in the way. As you know, the brain's wired up two ways, emotional and rational.
Yeah.
So you've always got to stay within that rational part of your brain, okay, when you're doing surveillance work, because you're trying to avoid being detected at all times, even in moments of crisis. Okay, so it's so easy to pull a pistol, okay, and start shooting. But if it's in a real sort of sensitive operation, then if you can play drunk, play stupid, okay.
We might come on to that story. Yeah.
Then obviously it always leaves a sort of like the enemy as such guessing. Who was it? Was it just a drunk? Was it a guy in the wrong place, the wrong time?
Create a bit of doubt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As soon as you draw a pistol, that's it. You're exposed. You're undercover soldier or police or whatever. All right. So that's what it taught me. It polished everything which the SAS lads taught me from the old 14 company for Bosnia. But 14 company selection for me was a massive learning curve still, because they are so precise in how they do things. Their procedures are so polished that basically you put that on the top of what I'd learned in the SAS. By the time I deployed in Northern Ireland, I felt invincible.
Yeah, I bet.
To be honest with you. Which is a bit arrogant to say.
No,
it's also dangerous to say.
But it is because of complacency and stuff like that. But at the same time, look, it's have the sort of faith in your training. And you've had, like we talked about, probably the best surveillance unit on the planet, coming from, arguably the best special forces on the planet. So you're right in what you're saying. You're going to feel confident about what you do, but obviously complacency kills, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've got... Now, I know of a couple of stories. If you feel comfortable with them, then, crack on. I'd like for the viewers to hear these, because they are quality.
Yeah. Well, there was sort of like more of a funny incident. Was out following a target in one of the major cities in Northern Ireland. After I dropped the target, I turned around, or I made a loop around to go back to my vehicle, and as I was walking back, there was a guy stood with a Celtic football top on by a Republican monument. As I was passing him, he stopped me and he says, "Do you mind taking a photograph of his mate?" Okay, Scottish guy. So I took his camera off him and I started taking photographs of him. And I was just thinking to myself, if you only knew who you were talking to, an undercover soldier. I had a bit of a conversation with him. He asked me, where was the best pub to drink in? So I pointed him towards the best IRA bar in the area, okay, and told him, you'll get a good pint of Guinness in there, mate. Okay, he went his way, I went my way. Again, that boils down to, knowing when to react and how to react. There, 14 Intelligence Company, again, because of the situational awareness training they put you through, okay, it prepares you for most scenarios, but that wasn't a scenario which was ever built into the training.
Yeah.
So that was off the cuff. Again, just being able to react in it in a proportional way. Okay, and basically I went on my way, and he never knew that he was talking to an undercover soldier who'd just been following probably one of his heroes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is mental, isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean, it's, again, you know, you've got to be switched on like 100% of the time, haven't you? You know, you're cutting around, and like you say, you can't be complacent. It must be draining. You find it like tiring when you were doing that line of work, where you're constantly focused and stuff.
Yeah, well, part of the selection process for 14 company is sleep deprivation. Okay, so actual part of the actual Camp 1 phase of it, which is like their selection process. It's a lot of sleep deprivation, with a lot of lessons, just basic military lessons. Sort of like one of the things what they'll do, they'll have you doing lessons all through the day. You probably won't get into your bed until about 12 o'clock at night. Then the fire alarm will go at, say, 2 in the morning. You'll be crushed out of bed, you'll be put on parade, you'll be brought into a lecture hall. They'll put on the most boring video in the world.
And stay away.
Yeah. So, and then basically they will leave you in there for an hour watching this. Then they'll come back, they'll separate the Ruperts, the officers, okay, from the sort of the grunts, sort of the rest of the selection course.
Yeah.
The officers will have to write an essay on what they've just seen, okay, and everyone else will have to answer questions, okay, and it's just to see if you can basically retain information whilst tired and stay focused. That's the sort of stuff what they do as part of the selection process. So when it actually comes to doing it on the ground, okay, even though you're tired and sort of like you're watching absolutely nothing for hours on end, it's just that blink of an eye when something happens, which you can't miss. So that's what it's teaching you: discipline, focus, professionalism, and it does work.
Look, sleep deprivation has been. There'll be lots of people watching this that think, "Oh, I can cope when I'm sleep deprived." Yeah. This sleep deprived, and then this sleep deprived. And you know, I talked about this earlier. Being sleep deprived is something that the British Army's used for years because it puts you under duress, doesn't it? It's a way of testing you. You can cope with anything when you've kind of had a full night's sleep, or even if you've had a few hours. But you start going into 2 and 3 days, 48 hours of no sleep. It is, your brain can't function. You can't, hallucinations kick in, and people don't know that, do they? How sleep deprivation plays a part.
Yeah, well, again, thanks to the Irish Rangers, I'd actually experienced sleep deprivation because we had an OC who was obsessed with it. He had read somewhere that if you keep someone awake for 36 hours, they start hallucinating. Yeah. So we actually devised an exercise for the company, okay, where we couldn't get any sleep for 36 hours. So I'd actually experienced sleep deprivation before I went on selection, before I went for 14 company. The exercise which he actually came up with was walking across Salisbury Plain from one end to the other, doing tasks in between attacks and all the rest of it, recce patrols, and then continuing on without any sleep. I remember walking along a path going through Salisbury Plain, and I actually thought there was someone in front of me playing the bagpipes.
It's a funny. I bet he were popular though, wasn't he? Yeah. I tell a story like when we do an exercise after we done P Company. It used to be called Dynamite Mole or Advanced Brecon back in the day. Then it became, and it was like you're given an area of ground to dig a trench. You dig it until the height of the toilet. You know you're yet finished, but it's 36, 48 hours, probably up to 5 days. I remember seeing cows in the next field and I thought they were tanks. I were ready to like let rip as if we were going to be bugged out and stuff. But yeah, it's a weird old thing. And you can see why it's used, can't you? Puts you under duress.
Yeah.
So, 14 in, and again, I'm like, it's difficult for me to get my head around. You're going from one tier 1 unit to another tier unit. You're not satisfied with just serving with the SAS. You've gone now on to 14. So at which point do you think, you know what, I fancy another challenge. I'll just go and do another one. You know what I mean? Why not? I've got 2 in the bag. I'll do another one. So at some point you decided, right, I'm going to go. How did them events unfold? Was it someone pointed out to you? Because I could be wrong here. SRR is a fairly not new concept, but it's not been around as long as the others, is it?
No. SRR officially stood up on the 5th of April 2005.
Okay, so
yeah.
20 years old.
20 years old now. When I was there, it was 2010, so it had only been stood up for 5
Fairly
years.
new, yeah.
Obviously, the core element of it was from 14 Intelligence Company. They were basically the foundations of it. One thing to note about 14 Intelligence Company and SRR, it's the only Tier 1 SF unit in the UK which has women operators in it.
Right.
The women do the exact same training, the exact same selection process, all the exact same standards, more criticism. Okay, but it's true. I was part of the training wing. I was part of the staff. And to be honest with you, our days in Northern Ireland with 14 Company, they were absolutely essential. Okay, and I'm not saying that because we used them for cover, but we used to sort of use them in ways where we couldn't use men, basically.
Yeah, well, it's common sense, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They were absolutely fearless as well. Brilliant. I've got absolutely no criticism of them whatsoever. Seems quite strange then when SRR is stood up, all of a sudden there's a woman Sergeant Major in charge of an operational squadron within Tier 1 SF. Okay, so obviously that caused a bit of sort of raised eyebrows. I mean, obviously a lot of criticism for the woman, the sort of who was the squadron Sergeant Major. I know her. But again, I mean, within SF you don't get it unless you deserve it. So she deserved it, and I think it's something which a lot of people don't realise that there are Tier 1 SF female operators within the British Army.
Vital for surveillance roles,
Yeah,
absolutely
100%.
vital, because they will be able to get into places that blokes can't and stuff like that. And let's be honest, like if you was surveillance aware, even if you weren't surveillance aware, or even if you were, you're not always looking out for a female.
No.
So I think blend in probably way more than even your kind of greyest man, really. Yeah. So definitely, a very, good point.
Yeah.
Was there a selection process for SRR coming from 14 in, or was it?
So for SAS guys and SBS guys, no. So they have Camp 1, Camp 2.
Right.
Camp 1 is all their selection process, sleep deprivation, weapons lessons, all basic sort of army stuff. It's really just like the wear down, sort of the sick, lame and lazy, the ones who aren't there for the real reasons. And then you go on to Camp 2, and Camp 2 is where you learn the core skills of 14 Intelligence Company, broke down into basic and then advanced over so many sort of months. And that's basically sort of the core element of it. Because obviously they'd stepped into the arena of UK SF, they then had to start doing a hills phase as well. So obviously this is where the criticism is going to come from. Obviously the women carrying the same weight as the guys and all the rest of it. But in my experience there, I honestly didn't notice any favoritism or any bias towards female operators. You're there, you're Tier 1, you've got a job to do, and everyone's got to make the grade. But when it came to their little hills phase, when I was initially there, it wasn't really watertight, because it was sort of like forced upon them by Director of Special Forces. It was basically says that if you want to be Tier 1, you need to do some form of hills phase.
And like, I get it a little bit, but I don't, because it's a different role. Yeah, they're not going to be doing stuff that involves carrying a massive amount of weight, whereas they're vital for a role in surveillance. So it's a bit kind of not unfair, but it's just a bit it doesn't really work, does it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main difference between SAS, SBS, and SRR. SAS, SBS, we've got an offensive capability.
Yeah.
SRR is 100% surveillance and reconnaissance and intelligence gathering.
Yeah.
Okay, so whenever sort of like SRR would never be expected to go in on a target. They are there as the surveillance and the reconnaissance for SAS and SBS. Yes, SAS, SBS, we've got our own surveillance capabilities. We've also got our own covert surveillance capabilities in the form of 14 intelligence company. But SRR was mainly stood up to support SAS and SBS operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. They basically used the exact same tactics that we used in Northern Ireland. So the tactics we used successfully, defeat terrorism in Northern Ireland. Okay, we used that against the insurgents in Baghdad and Afghanistan successfully. So we did. It's well documented that the SAS destroyed the insurgents' capability in Baghdad.
Yeah.
Their bomb making capability. I think they dropped it down from 40 a month to 4 a month in 6 months. And that's a combination of working SF, working in conjunction with covert military intelligence to provide the intelligence for the SF guys, SAS, SBS, to do the strikes.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So we get a lot of criticism. Like you've just touched on there, you was like, they went in and destroyed the bomb-making facilities and stuff like that. I hear a lot of criticism for SES, but what for British troops in Holt are saying, why were we in? Why did we evade Iraq? Why were we even there? It's being there on the ground is different to the kind of political kind of picture that everyone wants to be, because everyone will go, oh, you're there for the oil. When you've been there like yourself and seen the atrocities that have gone on, it's justifiable, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Do you think that's a fair statement?
It's military necessity is what it's called. Obviously, you've got to sacrifice a few to save a lot. It's military necessity.
Yeah.
We seen it in Northern Ireland, okay, where there was incidents there which arguably could have been stopped, but because it would have exposed certain things, obviously, through military necessity, okay, we had to maybe not take the appropriate action that we should have taken.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
But this is the thing, people get criticism for stuff, they judge the actions of the people that are willing to put themselves in harm's way without getting political about it, and then they sit behind a keyboard or behind a desk and look back in hindsight. Yeah. It's not like that. It's quick thinking, it has to happen, this has to happen. There's a bigger picture. Yeah. And I think majority of the people understand that, but you'll always get criticism from the few. It's just human nature, isn't it? Yeah. So SRR completed that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Was there a period of time when you got what was your reasons for leaving, really? Did you start to get fed up with it or want something new? Or
no, I was actually in Iraq and I phoned home and the wife says, I've had enough. I want you out.
Okay.
I only had a short period of time left in my full pension.
Right.
And it was at the time, I remember thinking, Christ, okay, you're asking me to make a decision on something which I absolutely love doing, but without going all wet and soppy. I loved my wife and my family more. So the decision was okay, I will leave. Okay, so I literally picked up the sat phone and PVR'd there and then.
Really?
But because it was on operations, I had to wait until it was all finished. But luckily or unluckily enough, about 3 weeks later, I was involved in an RTC, which meant I had to be evacuated from Iraq. By the time,
you do that on purpose?
Actually,
that is a romantic story if you did.
Yeah, no, but because it was going to take me so long to recover from the injuries, basically, they says there's no point you going back. So I basically stayed in Hereford whilst the guys carried on operations in Iraq. And there was efforts made to try to get me to stay in, but the decision was made. And I'm typical Northern Irish man. Once I make a decision, I'm very stubborn.
It's a done deal.
And I'll see it through to the end. That determination is what got me through Special Forces.
Exactly that, yeah. Well, look, you made the decision, and any regrets on that decision?
Yeah, 3 months later, she asked for a divorce.
Maybe it was a little bit too late.
Yeah.
Look, hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Yeah, so you're out. Did you contemplate going back?
Yeah, I did. It was actually, I actually did go back. That's when I ended up going as an instructor with SRR.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I ended up doing a further 2 years with SRR.
Did that
as
then
an
get
instructor.
your full pension and kind of...
I gave up the old pension for the new pension, so it didn't exactly turn out the way I was hoping it was going to turn out. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you know, I mean, when you make decisions out there, you've got to live with them. I don't blame no one for any decisions I've ever made. They've all been my decisions. And looking back, would I change anything? Probably not. I wouldn't be the person I am today if I hadn't made them decisions.
So I suppose this question, I don't know how to probably word it. Do you feel like you made a difference?
Yes. Definitely with 14 Company. Definitely in Bosnia with the war criminals. I was part of the most successful team ever to deploy there. We got 5 war criminals over my time there. All of them sent back to The Hague in the Netherlands. All of them got life imprisonment. So it was justice for victims. 14 Company, definitely. Made a difference there. At the end of the day, the reason why I believe the paramilitaries brought to the peace process was because they knew militarily they were defeated. People are going to criticise that. People are going to, probably troll you. Okay? But at the end of the day, guerrilla terrorist tactics, they're not really, yes, they would love the military defeat you, but what they want is wear you down into negotiation. That's basically what it boils down to. Taliban done it, IRA done it, and who's the winners?
Yeah.
So politically, we shouldn't go there.
No, well, look, I do try and avoid politics. Sometimes they come in, sometimes they don't. So when did you leave? What year was this?
2010.
Okay, so what did you, natural progression, security industry?
Straight in the security industry. I was part of, it mainly worked with the media around the world. Iraq, Libya, Syria, some stuff into Africa, that sort of thing. But yeah, it sort of wears off after a while.
Yeah, I think, I've not done it as an extensive sort of security career as yourself, I probably guess, but, I get your point as you get older. And I don't know, you probably know guys that are in it, that are into the 40s, 50s. And you do, and no one likes to admit it. I'm 45 now. You do slow down a bit, don't you? You know, I did look at I did a media security advisors course quite recently with Ken that we mentioned, with a view to going out to Ukraine. And then I thought, I've been out of that game for a long time.
Yeah,
is that you sort of how you feel with that?
Yeah, so like the last job which I did was in January this year, and I was out to Ukraine. I went out. I still love all the danger. I love being in war zones. It makes me feel alive.
Yeah, we established quite early on that you're a bit weird, Rob, to be fair.
Yes, of course. But to be honest, as I've got older, I've started to appreciate the finer things in life, like family, like my kids, like sleeping in my own bed at night.
Yeah.
So that's why well and truly hung up the guns, and I'm happy sort of like do what I'm doing now with Veterans for Veterans.
Yeah. No, look, fair play. Look, you've definitely done your time and some. Probably the most kind of experienced operator, or certainly one of them that I've ever spoke to. And like I said, you know, this is a bit of a first, really. You've never really spoke about these things.
Never.
And look, I feel privileged that you've come and kind of literally spoke to them about me genuinely. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
I'd like to expand in the future if you'd happy to come and do another kind of episode. We talk about more about the civilian side and some other bits of us. But for now, Rob, look, thank you very much for coming on.
Chris.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.